everyone. Welcome to another awesome day of FileMaker training. I'm Richard Carlton here with my cold beverage. Yes, time for a cold frosty one. We welcome Jesse Barnum here to give us an excellent demo of excellent products. We're very excited about that. However, before we get going, we want to do a little bit of briefly on our current schedule for live stream. So I'm gonna hit the button right here. 1, 2, 3. Today we got Zulu. So Zulu is, well, we'll get to it in a little bit, but it's essentially a product that allows us to do some sort of calendar syncing thing, which is pretty great. Once again, it's another of the key products that 360Works puts out. They do a lot of great products. Previously, we've talked about mirror sync, and then last week we did deploy. So as today, we want to welcome Jesse. We're going to be covering today. And before I'm going to go to your screen, Jesse, I'm going to do this for you. I'm going to go to 360Works.com, right? But we want to come over here to products where we see deploy, awesome product, mirror sync, awesome product. Safety net is when you grab a fish on your boat, you don't want to drop it, use safety net. Scribe, email, plastic. Where's Zulu?
Scroll down.
Where's it at?
We don't have it on the top.
What?
There's a whole bunch more stuff down below. I think it's an alphabetical order.
There it is. It's alphabetical order. Oh, that's great. And so FileMaker, what allows you to do is have a calendar in FileMaker and then easily, or with some levels of power and awesomeness, integrate that with Google Calendar and probably 360 Calendar and God knows whatever else. So that's what we're doing today. And Jesse is here because this product kicks, just to show you how much it kicks. One of the reasons why I like 360Works is besides Jesse's a nice guy, you could talk to him. When you have a bug, which I reported a bug to him yesterday, Jesse promised that within the next couple hours, my bug was going to be fixed, that a bug that I found. And I thought that was really great service. So we're going to hold you to that, Jesse. But the idea is that when you report a bug, he takes care of it aggressively. You're paying him good money, and he takes your business with you very seriously. So I can't say enough good things about that. So I'm going to quit sharing my screen, and we're going to let Jesse share his screen.
All right.
And so let's talk about Zulu. Tell us what is Zulu and why should we give it?
Yeah. So Zulu, tiny bit of history. Zulu was actually originally a collaboration with Seed Code. So John Sindelar and I came up with the idea together one year at Pause on Error. And so originally it was, and I can't even remember what year that was. I could look at our changelog and find out though. Version 1, we didn't, apparently we didn't put dates back in those days. Well, it's at least 2019 because that was version 2.308.
Nah, I think it goes back to Pause in Portland.
But it's been around a while.
Yep.
So it started off as a Zulu, as a Seed Code / 360Works product. At some point in time, we kind of took it over because it was easier for us to just support it ourselves. And Seed Code came up with a different calendar product, which is very good, by the way, Dayback. It does a very different thing than what Zulu does. Zulu is not designed. Let's talk about what Zulu is not. So this is a good example of where you might use Dayback. Zulu is not designed to show you a slick calendar interface inside your FileMaker solution. We're not trying to do web viewers and drag and drop and all that kind of stuff and a bunch of JavaScript inside FileMaker. What Zulu is intended to do is to take any event, appointment related data anything that has dates on it in FileMaker and publish that onto multiple different calendar platforms. We support the iCal format, which is what the Apple Calendar uses. I think Outlook also, like Outlook Client, I believe also supports iCal. And then it also integrates with Google Calendar, and it also integrates with Office 365 Calendar. So it's a really good way to use FileMaker as like a scheduling system, a dispatching system, a sales appointment system, all those kinds of things that FileMaker is really good at keeping track of, but then not have to like do double entry into all of your salespeople's calendars or all of your field inspectors' calendars or all of your drivers' calendars or all of your lawyers' calendars or et cetera, anything like that. So it's a great way to kind of bridge that gap between those things. We recently added, I'm not going to demo this today, but I think the previous version of Zulu also added support not just for calendars, but also for reminders in your calendar. So like if you use any iCal client that uses reminders, like the Apple Reminders app on your phone and your laptop and stuff like that, that can also integrate with Zulu so that you could create a record in FileMaker with a to-do item and it would show up in your to-do list on your phone or your computer or anything like that. So that's a broad statement of what it's for. Let's get into looking at how it works.
Cool.
So I'm going to start off with a setup. I'm using, just like I did with MirrorSync and Starting Point, I'm going to use MirrorSync and 360 Deploy rather. I'm going to use FM Starting Point as kind of my basis for where to pull my data from. And there's a lot of things that have dates on them that I could have picked, but I picked projects. So I went into projects. Projects already have a field for start date and an end date. I added a new field right here and here for start time and an end time because Zulu does require you to have a time field. But I wanted to, I mean, I could have just showed you the Zulu sample file that comes with Zulu, but I think it's a lot more interesting to see Zulu integrated into an existing solution because this is probably, for the people who are on this video, this is probably what you would want to do is integrate Zulu into your own solution. So I've integrated into the FM Starting Point. I didn't have to modify Starting Point much at all. So let's talk about what I've done here in Starting Point to get Zulu going. And this is all in our documentation. I'm not going to pull up our documentation and walk through it. I'm just going to kind of show you the end result of what I've already done. So one thing I did is I created a new table in here. The table is called Zulu calendar list. And then there is a corresponding layout that I copied and pasted from the Zulu file that comes with Zulu. So I copied and pasted all these fields. I created one new record for this one calendar. Let's talk for a second before I keep going about why you would have multiple calendars.
Yeah, why don't you define what is a calendar? What is a calendar?
A calendar, if you're in, let me pull up my calendar screen right here. I'm not going to pull up these things right here, but like these are each a calendar. Jesse Barnum's a calendar, Cub Scouts Pack 449 is a calendar, FileMaker product announcement is a calendar, etc. Each of these things is a calendar, and they have a bunch of checkboxes. So where you might use multiple calendars with Zulu is, let's just say you run a law firm, and let's say there are 6 partners or 6 lawyers in the law firm, and each one has their own calendar of who they're going to meet with. You could just make a single centralized law firm calendar and everybody would see everything and you would just look at who they're meeting with and figure out which lawyer they are. Or in Zulu, it's very easy to just create 6 records here. And what you would do then is you would fill in filter key and filter value. Like you would say that the filter key was attorney name and the filter value is Jesse Barnum. Now this calendar is only going to show records where a field attorney name contains the value Jesse Barnum. And I could create another record here and I could call it attorney name. And that's Richard Carlton. So now we would have 2 calendars, one for Richard and one for Jesse, and Jesse could uncheck Richard's and only see his. Richard could do the same, or both people could check both and see everybody's calendars. So that's why you might choose to have multiple calendars in your database, is if you want the ability to check and uncheck for like multiple people, multiple different rooms, multiple types of services that you offer, anything along those lines. And it's very easy just to set this filter key and filter value to control which events go on which calendar. So created that, I've pasted those things in. I created a new layout for events. And when I did not create a new table, I based it, this is going to be based on projects. So I went to projects and I created a new layout here called Projects Zulu. And I kept Richard's scheme of labeling everything with a number. So this is the Zulu layout. Again, I copied and pasted this from the sample file. I'm just going to quickly pull on the screen. Here's the file that you get when you download Zulu. And so you can see here's the calendar list. And you just saw how I pasted that layout into my calendar list layout. And then calendar fields. And so I went into layout mode. I selected all this. I copied. And then I pasted onto this layout. Now, when I did that, these fields were all blank. If I were to do it again, I'll just do it a second time just so you can see what the process looks like. I'm going to go over to my other spot right here. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to paste it. And by the way, this is running on our Linux server, just like everything else. So Zulu runs on Linux, just like.
Ooh, this got the upgrade, the Linux upgrade.
This has the Linux upgrade, just like MirrorSync and 360 Deploy do.
So real quick, while this is going, let me, for those of you wondering about this, there is Mac servers, Windows servers. We've had Linux servers before. The new one that Claris provided was ARM servers. Keep going, Jesse. I'm gonna keep talking. And
Mhm.
so it allows you to run Linux on these ARM64 servers. And you say, well, why would I care about that? Is because Amazon specifically, maybe other providers too, but Amazon specifically has their own flavor of ARM processor called the Gravitron, whatever it is. And I'm sure Jacob Taylor is happy to clarify that. But you can, instead of renting an Intel server, so where are the costs for the server when you set up an Amazon server? The cost is licensing Microsoft's operating system. They're going to want a chunk of change for that. And they're going to, and if you're buying a processor from Intel inside, you're going to pay extra for that. And if it's AMD, then it'll be, or whoever else it is, with an Intel clone, you're going to pay some money, but probably not as much as you paid Intel, right? Well, Gravitron or whatever it is an ARM64 processor that my understanding is Amazon cooked up or hired someone to kick these silicon out. Thank you very much, silicon, and these processors, because Amazon is the end reseller of them. They own them and they're reselling them. They're providing them cheaper, and so they're taking business away from Intel and AMD, and so you get a server that's cheaper. In fact, I have a server for a customer that's running cheaper. In fact, we could talk a little bit about this tomorrow, but I just want to say that Jesse now supports all this, right? So Jesse, do you support the
We do.
Linux with the AMD, or not the Linux with the ARM, right? The ARM
with
stuff.
the
Yes.
ARM Graviton chip. And by the way, if you're into saving the environment, the Graviton chip also uses a lot less power than the Intel chips and produces less heat, uses less electricity, et cetera, all that good stuff. And that's partly why it's cheaper.
Oh yeah, the electrical usage is a lot lower too. Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely.
Yep. So I just wanted to show what this looks like before I did the stuff. I redid this. I copied and pasted this from the example file. And this is how you tell Zulu what your fields are. I've already done the steps up in the lower part, in the upper part, but I'm just going to redo a couple of them here so you can see how this works. As you probably know, when you copy and paste a layout from one FileMaker database to another FileMaker database that doesn't have the same fields, all the fields are going to be blank. They're not going to be hooked up to anything. So we take advantage of that by just making it so now all you have to do is just double click on here, and then you just pick your primary key. What is my primary key on the ID? Oh, here it is, ID project. And then you do the same thing for summary. Our summary is our project name. Our date start is date start, etc. I'm not going to do all these because I've already done them up here. But
Okay.
the point is that this is all this is all you need to configure, to tell Zulu, this is my primary key. This is what I want you to use as the title of the appointment. This is what I want you to use as the date start field. And Zulu will then both read and write from those fields with the custom data that you're doing from the calendar. So I'm going to delete this because I've already done it. So that's the field mapping step. And then there's a few scripts that you copy and paste. They are right here. Those come with that sample file, so I just copy and paste them into a Zulu scripts folder.
So
And
you
then
do that after you set up the layout and everything, right? That way, it doesn't break. So remember,
that's right.
when you're bringing solutions together, you're stealing you're stealing elements from a file A to put in file B. There is a correct sequence of things to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
Generally, at the very end is a scripts. So,
Yep.
all right.
Then we come back to our calendar list. We make sure that it's got a name, which it does. We tell it what the name of the database is, and we tell it which layout we want it to pull from. And that's that layout that I was just messing with, was this L1107 Project Zulu. So that's how we know the field mappings. Then I run this publish script. This is warning me that I don't have certain fields that would be required if I wanted to support attendees for meetings. I don't care for this demo about attendees for meetings, so I'm going to skip it. But you can, Zulu does support that. And if you had fields that recorded which people were attending the meeting, Zulu would do that. I'm going to continue. Calendar and tools are now published. And I'll just show you what I did here on the integration part. So now it shows you these are all the calendars you've published. This is a link to the documentation for the iCal, iPhone, or iPad. This is the link for the documentation for Google or Exchange. So I'm going to set this up on iCal first. And here's my calendar URL. And here, if I go to calendar on OS 10, I got some documentation here. I'm going to drag this over on my smaller screen here, just so you can see this screenshot here. This is the automatic auto discovery thing. And so this will make more sense in just a second when I add the calendar. I'm going to add the calendar and then you'll understand why I'm showing you this graphic. So I'm going to go into iCal and I'm going to collapse all my personal stuff.
Yep.
And I'm going to go into system settings. And then you go to accounts, internet accounts.
Yeah.
I'm going to add a new account. I'm going to come down here and add other type of account. And I pick CalDev. And now you can see that why I'm showing you that picture, because it looks just like what we've got here. So our account type is automatic. There's an email address, and the email address needs to be in a very specific format. The first part before the @ sign is our FileMaker username. That's, in my case, that's Jesse. And then the @ sign, and then the host name of your Zulu server, which I'm running on our Linux server, which is Linux 1. So this is my username. This is the host name of our server. And then I just put in my FileMaker password for that server. And I click sign in.
So that's a username and password for that file, for this file, or for the server admin console? What are we talking about?
For the database.
For the database. Okay, got it.
For the database, not for the server admin console. You don't need the server admin credentials to set up Zulu.
It's awful quiet, folks. We need questions. I want to make sure that people are actually paying attention. Larry, Mark, if nothing else, I got to count on the Marines to ask questions. So let's go.
So notice this was not here a second ago. I had on my Mac, Gmail, iCloud, other. Now we've got this new thing that just appeared, linux1.360works.com. I can collapse and expand it. And here's a list of all my calendars. Here's projects. So none of this existed in iCal 60 seconds ago. And now what we see is we've got Zulu webinar, recycle old laptops, review hardware expenses, training videos, and onboard new developers. And where are those coming from? Those are coming from FileMaker Starting Point. If I go back to my home screen and I go to projects, here are all of my projects. So each of these records is now being displayed. Let me kind of rearrange windows a little bit so you guys can see these better. I'll go to a week view. It'll be a little less crowded. Now a month view is better. So each of these records is now being displayed on my calendar. And a really cool thing here is the calendar application, the Apple calendar application doesn't know about FileMaker. It doesn't know about the data API. It doesn't know about XML web publishing engine. It just knows CalDev. The CalDev is a network protocol. Zulu implements that CalDev protocol. That's where most of the code here lives.
Okay, so back up. So let's talk about this. Let's talk about where your code lives. So we didn't see you install this, but you installed Zulu on your FileMaker server, correct?
Yep, on the Linux server.
On the Linux server, so it's running. So we have the FileMakers. Yeah, I hate command line. I know you love that. So you have the FileMaker server on the machine. We already have that running, and then you're going to run Zulu on top of it. And so Apple's calendaring, iCloud, whatever is talking directly to this right here on screen, correct?
Yes, correct.
It's not really talking. I mean, it's not talking to FileMaker directly at any point. They're talking to your folks as kind of middleware, whatever you want to call this integration,
Yeah, and the cool thing is,
endpoint or whatever we call this. Yeah.
So this CalDev spec, it's not a FileMaker specification. It's not an Apple specification. It's not a Windows specification. It's an industry specification that lots of different platforms know how to use to read and write calendar-related events. So really, we're not limited to Apple Calendar here. You could use anything that supports the CalDev specification. That's phones. Android phones support it. The Thunderbird application supports it. Outlook supports it. And so it makes FileMaker, the fact that you're using FileMaker is totally invisible to this front end. And so you could use this as a corporate calendar, and people who are using Outlook would have no idea that you're actually running FileMaker on the back end. I just wanted to quickly show you, because I did skip. I showed this last week when we talked about 360 deploy, so I thought I'd skip it this time, but it's really quick, so I'll just show you the steps. I've SSH'd into my Linux box. I've run my Linux installer, and it just comes up asking some really standard questions here. What's the name of your Linux box? It's linux1.360works.com. Where do you want the sync data stored? I'll just take the default. Username admin, password, report statistics, yes. And then this is just saying, hey, I already see that this version is installed on here. Are you sure you want to go ahead? I say yes. and installs it. This is actually going to take it down for just a moment and then bring it back up. But that's the installation process.
So Larry, one of our Marines, is here who's retired, who does minor league baseball. He says he used Zulu a while back for a client, and he likes it and uses it, and he's successful with it. Stu says, calendar is great. Can we sync contacts and email as well? And then next question is part of Stu. Can Mirror sync with Daylight, a Mac CRM app, I think, that sits on top of the Mac OS calendar contacts task email? So
that was a bunch of questions at once. I'll try my best to remember them. So the first answer is
can we sync contacts and email as well? First question.
Oh, so contacts, no. We tried doing contacts at one point in time, and it was not a good fit for the FileMaker data model because unlike events tend to be stored in one table. Most of the time when you have like an appointment, your start time, your end time, your summary, your description, your URL, your location, your invitees, all of that in FileMaker is typically in one table. Most of us, when we set up contacts, we usually set it up so that the right way, which is that a person is in one table and all that person's email addresses and phone numbers and emails are in separate related tables. So we actually did support contacts once upon a time. It turned into a support headache because it was really hard to get it to work correctly with the related records. If you changed a related record because iCal doesn't keep track of the foreign keys, iCal is just giving us a list of emails or phone numbers. So it's really hard to know which foreign key and which record go with those things. That's a long-winded answer. The short answer is we used to support contacts, didn't work well, we took it out. Emails, I'm not sure email messages, I don't understand why you would want to sync those. That's what the IMAP protocol is for, is to have copies of your email on all of your devices. If the question is about, can you sync email addresses, that I think goes back to the contacts thing.
Yeah, it's the same thing, it seems to me.
Yeah. As for Daylight, the CRM, I haven't used Daylight myself. If Daylight supports CalDAV, which is like I said, it's an industry standard, then absolutely Daylight's going to work. I don't know if anyone feels like Googling that right now. Let me just do a quick check here. Does Daylight support CalDAV?
Larry, the Marine, says that after he got out of being a Marine and before he was doing AAA baseball, he built Zulu for a burial vault company. So he scheduled meetings with dead people. Awesome.
It looks like Daylight does have some CalDAV support for it. So I don't take this as a definitive answer, but the fact that they're talking about the CalDAV specification on the Daylight page is encouraging to me. Okay. I would think that might be supported. I don't know if Daylight can be a CalDAV client or if it expects to be a CalDAV server. In our case, we are the CalDAV server. We would be, we make this information available to a CalDAV client. So if Daylight is able to be a CalDAV client, then we would certainly be able to support it.
Okay, so I want to just remind the folks on Twitch that you're welcome to ask question. Herzitja, I can't pronounce that name. Sorry about that. Welcome, YouTube folks. Let us know if you have questions. Ruben says, making a crack about contacts need a NoSQL data model.
Yeah, no, that's a good way to do it.
Yeah.
David has a question.
David has a question. You want to read that, Margaret?
When receiving a .ics, will it update the calendar Gmail, then sync to Zulu?
The ICS thing would go into iCal, and then iCal would update FileMaker.
Can we stop and backtrack? Because I've seen ICS, but I don't remember off the top of my head what that is. What is
so?
Like,
for instance, when you sign up for a FileMaker webinar, and they say add this to my calendar, and you click that link to add to your calendar, what you're actually doing is you're downloading a .ics file, and the ICS file is basically just a little snippet of CalDAV data. And when you double click it, it gets added to your calendar. And then the calendar, if you add it to one of the calendars that is linked to Zulu, that will then be written up to the FileMaker. And so it will wind up correctly in your FileMaker server.
So if Jesse ran it here, so say Jesse signs up for that super secret live stream that Claris did yesterday, and I think today too, and he gets an email. He clicks on the email on this computer, then the ICS file will go into here and populate into this local calendar here. Then this local calendar will go and talk to Apple. I don't know how I draw a little apple with a little thing on the top. Talks to it looks like Pac-Man. There's Pac-Man. All right, and then it goes to Apple, and then Apple, because they're using CalDAV and they're aware of it, it talks to Zulu. Whenever I see Zulu, it's a Zool, Ghostbusters, right? So anyway,
That's marvelous.
yeah, no, I know. Sorry about that. So
you just designed our new website.
I know. There you go. It works, right? So ICS is it's basically like a little text file, right? A little text file.
Mm-hmm.
I always do this for people so they can see my scribbling. So it's ICS, and that contains your invite, or it's basically what a date and time and a title of an event and probably a link or something, whatever it is.
Yeah. I'm going to see if I can really quickly create a little ICS
Let me see if I can attempt to undo my edits here. Otherwise, they'll be glued on here for the duration of the live stream. There we go. Jesse wrote.
So what I just did.
Again, yes. Jesse.
What I just did here is can we do this? Yeah. Oh, no, that didn't. Hold on. So let's see, home, get a new folder. So if I bring a Finder window over to here, and I take anything from any calendar, this isn't just Zulu, this is just any calendar event you have. You drag it into the Finder, it's going to create an ICS file. And so if we look at that ICS file in a text editor, this is what the actual ICS looks like.
Yeah, it's just text, right? So there it is. So it's the event
summary,
created.
And then date start and date end and all that kind of stuff. And it's got time zone information. And so this is essentially what Zulu passes back and forth between FileMaker and iCal. Zulu takes your FileMaker stuff, reads it through the XML web publishing engine. Oh, and that's sorry, I don't want to get off on a detour. I'll come back to that. Reads your FileMaker fields from the XML web publishing engine, reformats it into ICS data, and then gives it to iCal when iCal requests it. So this is actually what passes back and forth between Zulu and the calendar.
Okay.
So now this is interesting because it's not actually, I wouldn't call this quite a sync. The reason it's not, it's sort of a sync, but it's also linked in real time. So I'm going to go to this training videos thing right here. And notice my training videos has a start date of July 21st and an end date of July 21st. And I'm going to come onto my calendar and I'm going to say, we're going to push those training videos back a week. I'm going to drag it here in iCal. And as I release it, that changes it right here in FileMaker. Now it's July 28th. So this is a read-write connection. This is not just reading from FileMaker and publishing to your calendar. It's not just reading from FileMaker and publishing your calendar. It's also taking any changes you create in your calendar and pushing them back to FileMaker. I can create a new event here. I need to make sure I pick the right calendar. And I can say test event 1, close that. Keeps popping up my personal stuff. Notice we just got a new project here, test event 1. And notice our start date and our end date, which are what are set here. So this is a bi-directional link. Anything that you create in iCal will go to FileMaker. Anything you create in FileMaker will go to iCal.
And what's the delay lag on that you said? I mean, you did it pretty quick here, but I was talking to people and asking questions over here.
Yeah, I have a feeling that the lag there was probably the lag between when we updated on FileMaker Server and when FileMaker Server pushed the change to FileMaker Pro. Or it may have been a lag, I'm not really sure, on the calendar side.
How is Zulu? Okay, back up. So Zulu's on FileMaker Server. Is it using DAPI to talk to server?
It's not. I'm glad you asked because that was a point I wanted to make sure to come back to. That's on our roadmap to rewrite Zulu to work with the data API. For now, it still uses the XML web publishing engine. That was taken out of the Linux version of FileMaker Server. But then I hear the scuttlebutt is that due to popular demand, it was added back in.
Okay, stop. Jacob Taylor to the bridge. Jacob Taylor, are you there? Please report to the bridge. Have you heard about this? I had not heard about this. So back up. So if it's not part of the FileMaker 23 Linux server install,
It
is it
is. This is what I'm running right now.
it's back in there. So it's back in. So you did it install, and the XML gateway is back in there
I
without a
needed to
special.
run, I did need to run a command line command to enable it.
Yeah,
I'll put
but
that in the chat.
but it did install. It did install it, though. Is what you're telling me.
It did, yes.
Jacob says billions of dollars flow through web publishing every year. They can't get rid of it yet. Well, not with WP. Well, I'm not going to use the word WPE because WPE drives WebDirect, so that's kind of loose, Jacob. I would say that the XML gateway, billions of dollars runs through the XML gateway every year, and they can't get rid of it. And then Margaret just cross-posted, this is the command line to enable it. So I'm going to restate this. Okay, here I am going to restate this officially. Wave my hands. That when we install FileMaker server, FileMaker server on Linux, that it does install the XML gateway, but it's disabled by default.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
So this is, so I'm ready to move on to show you guys how this works with Google. Do we have any questions on iCal or the calendar application? Everything I just showed you on my computer works just exactly the same way on the phone and the iPad. So it's really, really easy to give, you saw that when I was adding that account, all I needed to do was go into accounts, click add, switch it to CalDev, and then put in one email
I have a
address
question.
and
I
one
have a
password.
question.
So that's really, really straightforward to be able to give that information to your users directly. They can put it on their phone, they can put it on their iPad, and they'll have access to all this stuff on their phone and their iPad.
Stop for a second. Stop. Okay. So I have too many computers because of what I do, but let's pretend I'm a normal person. A serious
stretch. That's a stretch.
It's a super stretch. But let's just say that like Apple employees, even the ones that test and they do cross-platform testing on Windows stuff, that most Apple employees will have a desktop Macintosh and a laptop Macintosh and an iPhone. They will have three devices. However, when I set up the count, what my experience is, I have unfortunately 12 computers, and I like to set up one, and then I like those settings to kind of propagate or prostitute their way around the internet to the other machines, if that makes sense, right? And so the idea is that if I set the calendar up on computer A, does my laptop, who uses all the same accounts and logins and everything, does it get that stuff automatically, or do we have to do this CalDev on every computer?
The reason it works for you on all those different computers is because you're using iCloud. And the iCloud is a pretty closed ecosystem. So we can't hook into iCloud. We're not able, there is no API from Apple for us to push and pull calendar events to iCloud. That would be awesome, but that's just not Apple's.
Okay, stop. Let me clear. I'm just going to keep asking questions because if I'm confused, then probably 20% of the other people who are not Ruben are confused. Ruben has already figured this out. So when Zulu is talking CalDev, who is it? It's not talking to I assumed it was just talking to the Apple in the sky, which is iCloud. Who are you talking to in reality?
It's directly from the calendar application running on your computer without going to iCloud, without going to Apple. It's going from the calendar to the Zulu application, which runs on the Linux box. Zulu then turns around and talks to the XML web publishing engine on the same box in this case.
So your local calendar app, which would be called iCal, but it's not called that anymore. The calendar app, we set it up and it talks to Zulu that is running on your FileMaker server parallel to the FileMaker server software.
Yeah, let's say that you had FileMaker server on premise on your local network, and you set up Zulu and you connected it to it from your calendar, running locally on your computer.
Keep going. I'm drawing a picture here.
You could actually unplug yourself from the internet, and this would all still work because it's a direct non-cloud. I mean, it's only cloud in the sense of if your FileMaker server is hosted on the cloud, but it's a direct point-to-point connection from your calendar application to the Zulu application, which is typically going to be running on your FileMaker server. It doesn't have to be. You can install Zulu on a different box than FileMaker server, but typically your FileMaker server and your Zulu installation will be on one box, and so it's a point-to-point connection from the calendar / phone / iPad to your FileMaker box.
Okay. So do I have this correct now? Cloud. So iCal on your local computer is going to be put this information. It's going to talk to Zulu. Zulu will
Yes.
talk through a XML gateway to FileMaker server on the same computer up here. Okay.
Yes.
Then let's see. So then actually FileMaker, well, actually that doesn't have to be there at all. That's just
There really isn't any cloud portion of it. Now there is another feature of Zulu that I haven't demoed yet that does involve the cloud more, involves Google and Office 365, but it doesn't involve Apple's iCloud.
That's Pro. Sorry. I'm drawing pictures. All right. I think I'm better now. I'm better now. All right. So that's a good question. Whoever asked that question or if you just thought that question, that's a good question.
All right. So let me move on. And so everything I just showed you, this was what we originally did in Zulu 1 and I think 2. Starting, gosh, I forget the version numbers, but starting in a later version of Zulu, we added support for Google Calendar and Office 365, which then Google and Office 365 promptly broke by making basic authentication no longer supported and only supporting OAuth.
Yeah.
Which broke all of our stuff. So that is what is new. Besides the Linux support, the other thing that's new in Zulu now is that we now support OAuth so that we can log in correctly to Google and exchange calendar, which we couldn't do without OAuth.
Okay, so back up for a second. So here's, I changed my color. No one panic. So Zulu's up here on our server. Half the server is FMS. Okay, great. And so when Zulu is talking to Apple, it's actually talking to Apple through our local client, correct? It talks to
I don't know if I would say that it's talking to Apple at all. It's
talking to our local calendar app.
That's true. It is talking to the
Apple
calendar.
Is talking to Apple iCloud over here. But then on your 365 stuff and Google, are you talking to them directly?
Yes. It goes from FileMaker to Zulu to Google / 365.
Got it. So that is a kind of that's a structural diagram difference.
Yes.
We're getting to Apple through a back kind of a backwards kind of thing, right?
And really, the Apple connection is, I don't know if I would say that that's quite, we don't talk to iCloud at all. So like I have iCloud calendars on here and it doesn't go from Zulu to my calendar to iCloud. It just goes from Zulu to my calendar. Now I can coexist. I can have iCloud calendars and Zulu calendars and see them all in my calendar application.
Okay, stop. So you're saying my diagram's wrong?
Just this portion of it.
Yeah, but the calendar, but you're posting it. You're posting you're making edits to your calendar here. And if you have an iCloud account, your calendar is being shared up automatically, right? And your other computers, your laptop, right? Little buttons here is connected to it too, right?
Well, so you can have separate iCloud calendars. So I've got a bunch of iCloud calendars, and then I have this Zulu calendar, and they have separate events on them.
Okay, so if I have another laptop and I log in, I'm going to see all these. Well, I see this as well. Or no, I have to set this up on each.
On another laptop, you would see your iCloud calendars, but you would not see your Zulu.
Yeah, so that's where you have to set up each.
Yes.
Calendar application installation. Even if you have 3 or 4 computers that are your own, you're still going to have to do that.
Correct.
Okay.
Which is also true, by the way, of like Google. If you set up a Google Calendar, you have to do that on all the different computers. The only thing that gets shared between all of your devices is Apple stuff because Apple controls all your devices.
Okay. I think these questions are good questions because, I mean, maybe Ruben's got all this figured out, but I haven't actually done this. I haven't worked on a Zulu implementation in years. For me, it's kind of like coming at this. I loosely know what it is.
Right.
I haven't done it in a long time. And me kind of structurally understanding how the bits move around the internet is kind of important.
If Apple ever did open up their iCloud API more than they have and allow public vendors like us to read and write calendar events, then it could work exactly like what you're talking about.
Right,
And
right.
it wouldn't go from FileMaker server to Zulu to the calendar. It would go from FileMaker server to Zulu to iCloud to your
Correct.
calendar.
Correct.
And
Yes.
then all your iCloud calendars would show up on all your devices. But only Apple can open that gate, and I really
I
am skeptical they will.
well, at this day, I mean, if they were going to do it, they would have done it by now.
They
They're
would have
busy
done it.
working on their new, Provision device thing. They don't give a about calendars anymore.
I got one of my employees who's like insisting that I get one of those for the office. I have
Oh, I'm
not.
going to get one immediately. But
Have
the
not
problem it'll be,
acquiesced to that
yeah,
yet.
it's gonna. I want to see. I want to see your products, Jesse's products, work on the Vision. The Vision.
That would be pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Google. So I'm going to hide iCal. I'm not going to quit out of it, but I'm going to hide it. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the web interface for Zulu, which I haven't really spent much time on because you don't really need the web interface to do what I just showed you. This is basically what comes up after you install Zulu. You can go to here to make sure that's installed correctly. You can come in here to register your license key, that kind of stuff. But you don't need to do anything in the web interface to set up your calendar application because like we just saw, that is set up in the system settings on your computer. But now I'm going to come and set up Google. So for now here, I need to go to sync admin. Now I'm putting in my admin credentials for Zulu itself, which I set those back when I did my installation. That was set right here in the installation process of Zulu. And if I had been on Mac or Windows, it would have been the same thing. It just would have been a GUI dialog asking me for it. So I've set up a username and password to administer Zulu, which I'm going to come in here. I'm going to add a new sync config. So this is the sync admin page. No configurations have been created. This server is running in Los Angeles. Well, actually, no, it's not. That's a lie. It's running in Virginia, but I've set the time zone to Los Angeles. I'm in Atlanta in Eastern time, and I'm going to add a new configuration. I'm going to name it projects. I'm going to put my email. I'm going to put this demo email address. And then I will put in a username and password for my Google or from my FileMaker account, for my FileMaker database. Oh, and by the way, just while I'm doing this, it was kind of fun with the MirrorSync demo when we had people log into the server. Anybody who wants to is welcome to log into the server and create stuff and see what happens. You can also log in. So the username and password are MirrorSync, capital M, capital S. That's left over from when I demoed MirrorSync, but I haven't changed those credentials on purpose so that anybody who wants to can log into the FileMaker system. You can create new projects.
David Angel, expect you to immediately log in.
You can also, if you're curious, follow along with me and do this stuff with the calendar. You can go to calendar on your Mac. You can go to settings. You can add an account. You can put in MirrorSync is the username at linux1.360works.com, and the password is MirrorSync. So if you want to try that, create new events and drag them around yourself, you're welcome to while I'm doing this. So my database name is right here. I'm not going to save this. It's asking me remember I did that publish script? Every time I do the publish script, it tells Zulu about a calendar. I only ran it once, so I have one calendar here. And so it's saying, which calendars do you want to publish onto Google? I could have many different calendars, and they could be published to many different users. So I could have 30 different users using Google Calendar, and each one could get their own separate calendar from Zulu. I'm going to say sync with Google. I'm going to sign in with Google. I'm going to pick this Gmail account.
This is your new stuff. This is your new OAuth stuffy stuff.
This is the OAuth stuff. Yep, exactly. So this was not in the old versions of Zulu. So I think both Google and Exchange had a period of overlap where they would allow the old basic authentication, but they made the new OAuth available. I believe that now they've turned off the basic authentication. So you would not be able to do this at all with the old version of Zulu. You have to use the OAuth approach. So that's what I'm doing here. And so Google is warning you, hey, this is going to allow Zulu to view and edit everything in your calendars and see and download any calendars that you can access. Do you want to allow this? Make sure you trust Zulu. Hopefully you trust us by now. And then you, then you hit allow. And then this comes up authenticated.
Nice.
We go to next. And now we can hit finish. Oh, this is important. If I jump over to my Google Calendar, so this is my Google Chrome calendar interface right here.
Hmm.
This is a list of all of my personal calendars. I've got this projects one. I created this one before the demo. Zulu will not create your Google Calendar for you. It'll give you a pop-up of all of your current calendars. So if you want to sync Zulu with your Google Calendar, start off by going into Google and creating whatever calendar you want to sync to. It doesn't have to have the same name. I named it the same, but they don't have to be the same. And then pick the appropriate calendar from this pull down, and that's the calendar that all of your FileMaker events will get put into.
We have a question from Ruben who's paying attention here. He's saying, what account is it they're trying to follow along? It's something at linux1.360works.com. What's the app?
Mirror Sync, capital M, capital S, and the password is also Mirror Sync.
So the username and password are the same. Okay.
Yep. So I'm going to hit finish here because this is the calendar that we want to go to. And this is, so before I do anything cool here, I just want to pause for a second and explain what this is not. This is not a live link like iCal was. This is a sync, which means that it will run whenever I click the sync now or at whatever frequency I set it to. So notice that at the moment I have no events in my Google Calendar.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to click sync now. That finishes pretty quickly. 6 insertions to Google. And now here's my stuff in Google. All the same stuff that we were seeing in iCal is now on Google. This is kind of cool because it's actually using the same code that MirrorSync uses. MirrorSync is actually 2 components. It's what we call MirrorSync and then what we call ProSC Sync. ProSC is our kind of company acronym. We used to be Prometheus Systems Consulting and actually still is our legal name. So we use ProSC as kind of our prefix for stuff. So ProSC Sync is the low-level framework that we wrote to just sync stuff, sync anything with anything else. And then MirrorSync is the layer we put on top of it to sync FileMaker with stuff.
Okay, so I have a question from Stu that's really kind of along this topic. Stu is kind of asking questions of the differences between MirrorSync and Zulu, right? And so here's Stu's question. Reviewing the 360Works website, I see that MirrorSync also syncs FileMaker with other databases, MySQL, Salesforce, WordPress, etc. I don't see a mention of CalDAV. Are there other things that I'm assuming MirrorSync will sync?
That is a really good question, and it's exactly what I'm talking about right now. In the case of CalDAV, it's not a sync. It's not like we're saying find all the recently modified stuff and push it. CalDAV is acting as a client to us. Zulu just answers questions when CalDAV asks them. CalDAV will basically say, hey, is there any new stuff for this week or this month or this year? We don't know what it's going to ask. We just get the request from CalDAV, iCal, and we will go to FileMaker and we'll do a search and we'll say, here's all the stuff you asked for. So we don't really, that's not really a sync in the sense that it's triggered on a schedule. It's a connection because when the calendar wants information, we give it to it. And if you make a change in the calendar will immediately just send us a single write operation saying, create this event or change the title of this event or move this event from this day to that day. And it happens as you do it, not in batches. As opposed to what I'm showing you now with Google, this is a true sync. This is where the same code that lives inside of MirrorSync is going to FileMaker and saying, hey, what has changed recently? What's been deleted recently? What's been inserted? What's been updated? And then it goes to Google and it says, hey, insert this, delete this, update that. Google isn't asking us for anything. Google isn't telling us anything. Google just sits there with the data that lives in Google. It's up to Zulu to kind of kick things off.
So
and go to Google and say,
Zulu is polling the word polling Google.
Yes. Zulu is going at some regular interval and asking Google, what do you have? It's going to FileMaker and say, what do you have? And then it's pushing all those changes to both.
Okay, so and then in terms of the Apple Calendar, that's a local client integration.
Yes.
So it seems like a sync, but really it's a little different. In that situation, the calendar app on your iPhone or on your iPad or on your Mac is actively making requests and having a conversation with Zulu. So
Yeah,
that calendar app is initiating the conversation. Zulu is just kind of an endpoint for that. And it's different
that's right.
with the Google 365 side where it's actually polling or actively
Yeah. To
communicating.
demonstrate that, I'm going to create a new event right now in Google, and I'm going to call it Sync Demo. And what I want to show you here is that that event does not appear in FileMaker because I have not set up auto sync yet. So we're not going to see anything in here that says, what did I have already forgotten what I called it. Sync Demo.
Yeah.
Sync Demo does not appear here because Google doesn't reach out to us like Calendar would and say, hey, so my user just created a new event, do something with it. Google just sits there with it. When I run the sync right here by clicking sync now, but when I run that sync, that's going to go to Google, grab that information, and pull it back into FileMaker. Let me, well, that was mysteriously slow. But it did work. It was one insert, 0 updates, and 0 deletions. And now I'll bet you if I come back to here, yeah, there's my sync demo.
There it is. Yeah.
So that got put in there as part of the sync. I wanted to finish asking the last part of that previous question, which is that can mirror sync do this? And the answer is mirror sync. We haven't programmed a user interface in mirror sync to sync between FileMaker and Google because that's the Zulu product, which is a separate product. They share a lot of the same code under the hood, but mirror sync will not sync directly with Google and Office 365 because it just doesn't have any UI to configure to do that.
Hey, Stu, so understand that where this came from. So MirrorSync pre-existed. It's been around for a long time. It was codenamed Hamster Ball back in the day. I remember.
Yep.
I thought that was
Yep.
a much better name.
Do you remember why it was called Hamster Ball?
No, I remember the graphic that your brother did, but no.
Do you remember the San Diego DevCon where they had those giant hamster balls out on the lawn?
That's where, yeah.
That's where we started working on Zulu. And do you remember the video of us? Kurt Bowman was standing there and was getting interviewed, and Sam and I came up in the hamster ball and just flattened him from behind. It was awesome.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So really, Stu, Zulu was created in partnership with John Sindler at Seed Code. And so they really separate products on separate tracks. I think if you were going to go back and do this from scratch, maybe Jesse would put them together, maybe not. But really, they came from different histories, and I'm sure the legal framework behind the products is a little different as well. So just understand that, yeah, Stu's smart. Stu's actually really, really sharp, and he's thinking that this seems very similar to MirrorSync, and how come it's not in one product, right?
You're absolutely right. Yeah, there is a lot of shared code under the hood, but there's very, very different interfaces for configuring those respective syncs.
Yeah.
What I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn this auto sync.
Yeah. There we go.
So I'm going to set it every 10 seconds. You've been seeing me come in and click the sync button to get this stuff to work. But I'm going to turn on the auto sync. I'm going to jump back to let's make a change in Google. Let's go to our sync demo and let's add a description.
Okay. Okay.
And
let's go back over to FileMaker. Just go to FileMaker.
Let's jump back to FileMaker. Should happen within about 10 seconds or so. Although it did, like that last one did for some reason take a little while to run. I'm not sure why. I'm not sure why we're getting these delays right now. But it will sync at some point. It will kick in, and that sync will run, and it'll pop over between them. Let me while I'm waiting for that sync to run, let me talk for a second about time zones. Notice here that so these things, these are all day events that have no time. I'm going to jump to the week view. This runs at 1 p.m. And if I look at this, notice that this is 10 a.m. I'm going to change this from 1 a.m. to 2 p.m. And notice that my time changed to 11 p.m. So that's demonstrating two things. One is showing the live link. We don't have that sync delay like we have with Google. So one is that we're demonstrating that it's a live link. But two, I wanted to set the server in a different time zone than where I'm in Atlanta. My calendar knows I'm in Atlanta. And so Zulu is time zone aware. So when I change this to 2 p.m. Atlanta time, Zulu knows that FileMaker server is running in Pacific time. And so it's written this as 11 o'clock a.m. because that is the correct time for Pacific time in Atlanta. So it knows about time zones. It will adjust them accordingly based on whatever time zone your FileMaker server is running in. Still didn't get our... Oh, I didn't save. There's a save button. I don't actually use Google Calendar.
Yeah, that's
very much myself.
Oh, well, it'll get there eventually. Just go back to FileMaker. We'll wait for it to magically show up. Let's see.
There we go. This is a great
there
description.
it is.
There it is. Yeah. Okay. So save button. That's a good thing to do in a demo.
All right. Well, we're running up of our 1 hour.
Yeah.
1 hour time thing here. We don't have to have a hard stop, but I want to make sure everyone has their questions have been answered.
There isn't. If you're trying to set up CalDAV, you don't actually need a URL. You put the email address in. You go to the automatic option, and for your email address, you put mirrorsync@linux1.360works.com. Put in mirrorsync as the password. Remember to capitalize the M and the S. That should be all that's needed. Why don't we, hey, Richard or Margaret, can we get confirmation from anybody on the Discord that somebody has set that up successfully? I'd like to know for sure that somebody
Well, Ruben had a problem, but he decided that you were just a moron and he would just watch. So we have another person who said they failed. So
I'm gonna share my screen and do it one more time.
Yeah, let's do it one more time. So everyone follow along. Everyone pay attention.
All right, I'm gonna delete this calendar. I'm gonna add a new one. So we go. So okay, let's start from the very beginning. So I'm gonna Apple menu, System Settings. We go to Internet Accounts, Add Account. Scroll down below these things and say Add Other Account. Pick the CalDAV account option. When you get in here, we'll type in MirrorSync, capital M, capital S. I can't spell MirrorSync for some reason. At linux1.360works.com. The password is MirrorSync, same capitalization. Sign in. Oh, come on. Did I type it wrong?
Oh, someone set it up successfully. Thunder Frogum from Twitch.
Hey, Thunder Frogum. Thunder Frogum is the one that helped me get this demo set up. That's actually Will. So MirrorSync and this both have full access privileges. Let me do a quick check and make sure my credentials work here. You know what? We are running out of time, and I don't want to waste time doing live troubleshooting. I don't know why this worked before.
Sorry, I'm over here talking. So what I want to do is that because of this, you're now going to be required to come back and provide more demos. So that way we feel like A, you love us, and B, we want to buy your products.
I would love to.
Well, when
So
do we
I will
get to
not
have
be
you
able to-
back? When do you get to come back and show us your, another demo? Because listen, this is like talking to Christian Schmidt at Monkey Bread. I mean, he has 7,000 features, so he could come on the show every day and he'd never get it all done. But
Yeah.
you have a lot of cool products that you haven't showed us yet. And if you want us to, buy your and give it to our customers or set up for the customers, you have to show it to us. So when do you want to come back?
I think early September.
We're gonna have Jesse back sometime. If people want more information on, let's go to your website. If you want to buy Zulu, you can come here and put your credit card in, and then hope for the best. I'm sorry, I'm bad. No, listen. Our RCC uses Zulu, but we have to use the new one because we're running into OAuth problems. Right,
Yes.
That's our problem.
And we had the same issue with our email plugin. We send email through Office 365 as well, and we send email through Google, and we had the exact same issue. We needed to get all the OAuth stuff working, and it's a pain. But once you get it, you get it.
Yeah. Stu, thank you for showing. And then, if you folks have questions, you have topics for Jesse, you want to have him come back. Thunder Frogum, you don't get a vote. Push the frog. Thunder Frogum. Jeez. Sounds like a trucker call sign. On my CB, good buddy, with Thunder Frogum. We got the Popo on my 1.6 over. Right. So anyway. All right, cool. All right, everyone. I got to go fly a helicopter. I'll let you go.
Thanks a lot, Richard.
Not mine.
Thank you,
I gotta
everybody.
borrow one.
Thanks, Margaret.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Got a report of an individual up here who may be a FileMaker license. Well, it's potentially expired. Look at the back of that car right there. Looks like the FileMaker license has expired. Sir, I need you to step out of the vehicle. Sir, step out of the vehicle. Sir!